She knocked past midnight, soaked and shaking, and whispered, "Promise me you'll take care of her." I said yes, before I knew it would cost me everything. She didn't just leave a baby, she left behind a trail of lies with my name on it. And by the time I saw the truth, I had already fallen in love with the child she walked away from. My name is Eleanor Holloway and I am 62 years old. The knock came just after midnight. I had been halfway through folding the last of the laundry, tiny towels and faded shirts that didn't really need folding, but kept my hands busy. When I opened the door, Rachel stood there, soaked to the skin, cradling a bundled baby in her arms. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. She stepped onto the rug and shivered. "It started raining while I was walking over," she added, even though I hadn't asked. I could see the edges of mascara smudged under her eyes. Not from the rain. From crying. I reached out slowly. "Here, let me hold her." Rachel clutched the baby tighter, then nodded. "Be careful. She's asleep." Emily was so small, her little head resting against Rachel's chest, her hands curled into fists like she'd been born fighting. I held her gently, and my chest did that strange thing it hadn't done in years. A thump so strong it made my knees ache. I need to talk to you," Rachel said, pulling off her wet coat. "Sit down," I told her. "You look like a ghost." She shook her head. "No, Mom, I'm not doing well." "Not at all." I turned to her sharply. "Did something happen?" "No," she said too quickly. Then softened. "Yes. Everything. Jason left. I lost my job. I haven't been eating right, and Emily deserves better than this." I looked at the baby again. "She's perfect." "She is," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "But I'm not. I thought I could figure it out, but I can't. I need help, Mom." My throat tightened. "You want to stay here a while?" She shook her head again. "No, not me. Just her." I blinked. "Rachel." "Just for a little while," she added. "Please. I just need time. A few weeks. I'll come back when I'm on my feet. But I need to know she's safe. I need to know she's with someone who won't give up on her." I swallowed hard. "You know I won't." She sat down at the edge of the couch, fiddling with the strap of her bag. "Promise me, Mom. Promise you'll take care of her, no matter what." I hesitated. That pause, the one I ignored, should have told me something. But instead, I reached for Rachel's hand. "Of course I promise. I'm her grandmother." Rachel closed her eyes like she'd just heard a verdict. Then stood. "Okay. You're leaving now?" "Yeah. Jason's waiting for me, he's giving me a ride to a friend's place. I had to see you." I looked down at Emily. "She has bottles? Diapers? Clothes? All packed." "It's in the bag." "But, Rachel, she'll wake up and wonder where you are." She walked to the door, not meeting my eyes. "Tell her I love her. Tell her I'll come back soon. Rachel." She turned, her voice suddenly firm. "Don't make this harder." The door closed before I could say anything else. I stood in the middle of the room, holding the baby against my shoulder. Her breath was warm against my collarbone. I stared at the door, waiting for it to open again. It didn't. After a long minute, I went to the back room, the one I'd kept mostly for storage but had never quite cleared out. The crib was still there, folded in the corner. I had kept it all these years, not really knowing why. Maybe deep down I knew one day it would matter again. I cleaned it off, layered it with soft sheets, and gently laid Emily inside. She stirred for a moment, her lips twitching like she was about to cry, then fell still. I sat on the edge of the bed and just watched her. Her little chest rising and falling. Her feet barely reaching the other side of the mattress. I should have been afraid. I should have felt angry, or burdened, or used. But all I felt was needed. The wind howled outside. Rain clattered softly on the window pane. I picked up Rachel's diaper bag to check what she'd packed. Formula, yes. Diapers, some. A pacifier, a few outfits, a small folded blanket that smelled like cheap detergent. And, tucked deep into one corner, an envelope. No name. No return address. Just my name, Mom, written in Rachel's quick, careless handwriting. I didn't open it. Not that night. I put it back and zipped the bag shut. Later, I turned off the lights and lay in bed, the monitor by my side buzzing with soft static. Emily slept. I didn't. I kept waiting for the sound of Rachel's car pulling back into the driveway, for another knock on the door, for some apology or second thoughts. But the night passed, and morning came, and still, nothing. It would take me weeks to realize Rachel hadn't just left me her baby. She'd left a trail. And I had no idea I was walking straight into it. The baby monitor crackled again. I sighed and rolled off the couch, my knees popping like old wood. "Coming, sweetheart," I mumbled, even though Emily couldn't hear me yet, could barely hold her own bottle, much less understand promises whispered in the dark. By the time I reached her room, she was sitting up, cheeks flushed and fists clenched in that familiar, furious baby rage. "You really hate nap time, huh?" I said gently, lifting her into my arms. She stopped crying the moment my shoulder found her cheek. That was how most days went, quiet until it wasn't. Then loud. Then quiet again. I'd forgotten how exhausting it could be, raising a baby. Or maybe I just hadn't been this tired the first time around. I was in my 60s now. My back reminded me daily. Still, I adjusted. I always had. The formula ran out faster than I expected. Same with the diapers. I stopped buying the nice kind of bread I liked and started clipping coupons again like it was 1993. I made my Social Security check stretch so far it should have snapped in two. Rachel texted every few weeks. "How's Em? Can't talk. Busy. Love you." That was about it. I sent photos, Emily in her little yellow onesie, Emily trying mashed carrots, Emily grabbing my nose like it owed her money. She never replied to the photos. One morning, I stood in line at the pharmacy with a can of formula in one hand and my wallet in the other. I swiped my card. "Declined," the cashier said politely. I blinked. "Try again?" She did. Same result. Embarrassed, I stepped aside and fumbled with my banking app on my phone. The balance looked lower than it should have. A charge from a rideshare app one didn't use. Another from a clothing store I'd never been inside. Just a few dollars here and there. Must have been hacked, I muttered to myself. When I got home, I told Irene over coffee. She raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like a random hack." "It's nothing. Probably online fraud," I said, waving it off. "I'll call the bank." "You should," she said, frowning. "But you should also check your credit report. Just in case." I laughed. "I haven't had credit since Bush was in office." She didn't laugh back. "Humor me." I promised I would, but I didn't. Not right away. I didn't want to believe there was more to it than bad luck and a tired mind. Instead, I focused on Emily. She'd started standing up in her crib, holding the bars like a little prisoner. She babbled when I sang to her, even though my voice cracked. She smiled when I read the same book 5 times in a row. She called me Ma one morning. Not Grandma. Not Nana. Just Ma. I sat on the floor and cried when she did that. I didn't correct her. One afternoon, Irene stopped by with a bag of groceries. You didn't have to. I know, she interrupted, putting eggs and a carton of milk on the counter. But I wanted to. I leaned on the fridge. I feel like I'm running a marathon in slow motion. Everything hurts, and no one's clapping. Except Emily, she said softly, glancing at the baby playing with plastic spoons on the floor. She doesn't clap. She smacks things. Same difference. I smiled for the first time that day. Then I opened the mail. Most of it was junk, catalogs, donation requests, a newsletter from the church I hadn't visited since pre-pandemic. But there, tucked between the pages, was another bank notice. This time, it wasn't just a charge. It was a withdrawal. Bigger than before. Irene, I said, holding the letter out, does this look right to you? She took it, scanned it. No. Absolutely not. Did you make a wire transfer? Never in my life. She lowered the paper slowly. You need to look into this, honey. Seriously. I nodded, but something inside me locked up. My stomach churned. My head throbbed. A name rose in my mind, uninvited and sharp. Rachel. No. I shook it away. Rachel might be unreliable. A little selfish. But she wouldn't, not to me. Not this. Still, the charges didn't lie. The money was gone. And I hadn't touched it. That night, after Emily was asleep, I logged into my bank account again. I scrolled back, slow and steady, looking for anything I'd missed. There it was. Multiple deposits to the same unknown account. All labeled caregiver reimbursement. But I hadn't filed for any reimbursements. I hadn't authorized anything. I clicked again. Each deposit had been authorized under my name, but the routing number didn't match any of my records. The account was different. The bank was in another state. And yet, the sender listed? My Social Security. My hand hovered over the keyboard. I clicked once more. Searched for the IP login history. The access city. Los Angeles. Rachel's last known address. I stared at the screen until the glow burned behind my eyes. I didn't cry. Not then. I just whispered, "What did you do, Rachel?" Emily whimpered in her sleep. I turned off the screen and walked to her crib. She stirred but didn't wake. Her little fingers twitched as if grabbing dreams out of the air. "I promised I'd take care of you," I whispered. And I would. Even if it meant finally opening my eyes to the truth. I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. Not knocking. Not the hurried pounding I expected from Irene or a delivery driver. No, this was deliberate. One chime. Confident. Controlled. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened the door. Rachel stood there, smiling like someone who hadn't vanished for 3 months. "Hi, Mom," she said, adjusting her sunglasses up onto her head. My eyes trailed down. Designer boots, tailored coat, polished nails the color of deep wine. She looked rested. Glossed. Like she'd stepped out of a salon and into my life. Rachel, I managed. You're here. Of course I'm here, she said lightly, stepping past me. I've been meaning to stop by. Just been swamped. I shut the door slowly. It's been almost 12 weeks. I know. Sorry. Things have been a little wild. Emily's babble echoed from the other room. Rachel glanced toward it but didn't move. She still babbles like that? She has 2 new teeth, I said. Oh. We stood there, mother and daughter, an ocean between us. Finally, I broke the silence. Do you want to hold her? She hesitated. In a bit. I just wanted to catch up with you first. I blinked. Okay. She sank into the armchair across from me, crossing her legs. So, how are things? You holding up okay? I nodded slowly. It's hard. But we're managing. That's good. I figured you'd be great at this. You always had that sturdy energy. Sturdy, I repeated quietly. She didn't notice. Or didn't care. She leaned forward, casually. And financially? Are you getting enough from Social Security? My stomach tightened. What kind of question is that? Just curious, she said quickly, laughing. I mean, I know how expensive babies are. Formulas, what, $20 a can now? Closer to 30. Yikes. She whistled. Glad you've got that income. I studied her carefully. Rachel, why are you really here? She pulled out her phone. Actually, I can't stay long. I have a work call in 20. But I wanted to drop by, make sure you're okay. Maybe take a photo with Emily? She doesn't recognize you. Rachel paused, lips parted slightly. Well, babies are weird like that. No biggie. I went to the playpen and lifted Emily into my arms. Her eyes scanned Rachel's face with blank curiosity. Not a flicker of recognition. Rachel reached out, fingers brushing Emily's arm like she was testing a sweater's fabric. Hi, pumpkin. Remember me? Emily squirmed away, burying her head into my neck. Rachel pulled her hand back. Guess she's just shy. Or confused. She stood, smoothing her coat. Well, like I said, can't stay long. I walked her to the door. At the threshold, she turned suddenly. Hey, Mom. I was thinking. If you ever need help filing for any reimbursements, or managing your Social Security stuff, you know, all those forms, I can totally do that for you. I know it gets confusing. I tilted my head. Why would I need help? You're always saying tech stuff is hard, right? She said breezily. Just saying. I could make it easier. I'm managing, I said evenly. She nodded. Cool. Just offering. Then she kissed the air beside my cheek, turned on her glossy heel, and was gone before I could ask anything else. I stood in the doorway long after the sound of her boots faded. That night, after Emily was asleep and the dishes were done, I stepped outside to take out the trash. Something white was wedged under the porch mat. I bent down and pulled out a stack of mail, 6 or 7 envelopes, all with my name. None opened. None delivered inside. I carried them back in and sat at the kitchen table. Bills, one after another. Then a thicker envelope caught my eye, no return address. My name printed neatly. I opened it. Inside was a brand new credit card. Issued in my name. From a bank I didn't use. I stared at it, heart thudding. My hands shook. I hadn't applied for this. I flipped the page. There, in small print, was the activation date. 2 weeks ago. I pressed my palm to my forehead. The balance was already over $300. Groceries. A hair salon. Something called Elite Skin. I gripped the edge of the table. Sturdy, she had said. No. She didn't come back to see Emily. She came to see if the well was still running. I looked at the monitor. Emily stirred, sighed, and fell back into her soft breathing. I exhaled. She didn't recognize her mother. And I was starting to realize, maybe I didn't either. Irene, I said, placing the unopened credit card envelope on her kitchen table, does this look real to you? She set down her mug of chamomile and pulled the letter closer, squinting. This one's addressed to you, but you never applied? Not a thing. I didn't even know the bank existed. She scanned the paper, flipping it to the back. Activation dates already passed. Balance showing. Groceries, beauty treatments, some Uber rides. I sighed. Rachel came by 2 days ago. She was wearing a coat I swear I've only seen on TV. Irene's brows pulled tight. She asked about money, didn't she? I hesitated. Social Security. Damn. She leaned back in her chair. You need to check your credit report. Now. I don't even know where to start, I admitted. I've never done that. Not once. She stood up, wiping her hands on her jeans. Let's go. Where? Your house. We'll do it together. We bundled Emily in her little jacket and carried her back across the lawn. She giggled, completely unaware. I wished I could float through life like that again. Once inside, Irene sat down at the computer like she owned the place. You got internet, right? Yes. She typed quickly. All right. Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. We'll check all three. It's free once a year. I sat beside her, watching her screen light up with rows of numbers, links, forms. It felt like looking into a language I didn't speak. Okay, she said, pointing. Enter your social. I'll guide you. I did, my fingers trembling slightly. 2 minutes later, my report loaded. Oh God, I whispered. Irene's face didn't move. She was scanning fast, her eyes jumping from section to section. There's a credit card in Texas, she muttered. I've never been to Texas. Electric bill in Vegas. No. Payday loan. Opened last month. I gripped the edge of the table. How is this possible? She clicked on another tab. They used your name. Your social. All of it. I swallowed hard. Maybe it's just identity theft. Random. Irene turned to me slowly. You really believe that? I stared at the screen. Rachel wouldn't, she couldn't. But she could, Irene said gently. She asked about your social. She hasn't been here. She's living comfortably. And she knew you wouldn't notice. She's my daughter. And you're her mother, she said softly. That's exactly why she thought she could get away with it. Tears prickled the corners of my eyes. I raised her better than this. Irene's voice softened. I know you did. But this? This isn't about how you raised her. This is about who she's choosing to be now. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all pressing into my chest. I thought about every diaper I'd bought. Every midnight bottle. Every time I told Emily, your mama's working hard to come back. What a lie. Look here, Irene pointed. She listed a forwarding address. This is where the utilities were billed. Is that legal? No. Not if she used your name. I leaned back in the chair, suddenly dizzy. I feel like a fool. You're not. You trusted your child. I shouldn't have. Irene didn't respond for a moment. Then she placed her hand over mine. You loved her. That's not the same as being blind. Emily cooed in the other room, playing with a wooden spoon. She had no idea her world was built on a fragile foundation I'd never thought to inspect. What do I even do now? I asked, quietly. You start documenting. Every charge. Every letter. Every phone call. We'll contact the banks. Then you talk to someone, legal aid, maybe Monica down at the library. I'm not strong enough for this. You are. You're just tired. And that's not the same thing. I nodded, but the shame bloomed anyway. Not just shame for being used, but shame for not seeing it sooner. For defending her. For covering for her. For needing her to be good so badly that I missed the truth staring me in the face. I stood slowly. I need to lie down. Irene followed me to the hallway. You want me to stay? No. But thank you. She hugged me, quick and firm. We'll fix this. One step at a time. After she left, I sat on the floor beside Emily and watched her babble and kick her tiny feet. She looked up and laughed. I made a promise to take care of you, I whispered. And I will. Even if I have to protect you from your own mother. I stared at the phone for nearly an hour before I could dial. My thumb hovered over her name. Just Rachel, saved without a heart or emoji or even daughter anymore. Just her name. Stark. Cold. Emily was asleep. Irene had offered to sit with me while I called, but I said no. Some things you have to do alone. I finally pressed call. It rang twice. Hey, Mom, Rachel answered, chipper like I was calling to chat about curtains. I cleared my throat. Rachel. I need to ask you something. Okay, she said cautiously. I gripped the arm of the chair. Are you using my name to open accounts? Credit cards? Loans? There was a pause. Then a soft laugh. Mom. Seriously? Rachel. Oh, come on, she said, still laughing. You always do this. You freak out over nothing. I'm not freaking out. I checked my credit report. There are cards I never opened. Loans. Bills in places I've never lived. Rachel, things I didn't do. Maybe it's identity theft, she said breezily. Happens all the time. I took a breath. I also found out someone rerouted my social security to a different account. In California. Silence. Then a change in her tone, slightly sharper. You're not making any sense. I spoke to the bank, I continued. And I'm calling the fraud department tomorrow. Her voice dropped an octave. You're overreacting. I'm reporting it. Now her voice wasn't just cold, it was sharp. Weaponized. You think they'll believe you over me? She snapped. You're a retiree with no job, no income beyond government checks, no formal education. I have a stable residence, work history, and custody documents showing I left Emily in your care. You never signed a thing, I said quietly. They don't need to know that. I blinked. What? You're not thinking clearly, Mom, she said flatly. And honestly, if you want to bring legal attention to this, fine. But don't be surprised when it turns on you. You stole from me. I took what I needed, from someone who has nothing else to do but sit at home and bake casseroles, she spat. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Emily is not a pawn. Neither am I, she hissed. You've always made me feel like one. Like you were owed something. I gave you everything, I whispered. Yeah, she said. And now I'm taking it back. Then she hung up. Just like that. I sat there, the hum of the disconnected call buzzing in my ear. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Then I heard a soft cry from the baby monitor. Emily. I stood and walked toward her room like a sleepwalker. She wasn't fully awake, just stirring, her little arms reaching in her sleep. I placed my hand on her chest, soothing her gently. She quieted. I didn't. I walked back to the living room and sank onto the couch. The room was too quiet. My chest was too loud. I had imagined 100 versions of that phone call. Not one prepared me for what she said. What she didn't deny. She'd taken my money. My name. My trust. But the worst part wasn't what she stole. It was how easily she did it. I stared at the framed photo on the bookshelf, Rachel at 7, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a birthday cupcake. I used to tell myself that girl was still in there somewhere. Tonight, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I wept quietly, clutching the blanket like it was a lifeline. Not for the dollars. Not for the damaged credit. But for the daughter who no longer existed. And for the little girl sleeping in the next room, born into a world of pretense. Left like a suitcase at my door. Loved, perhaps, but never enough to matter. I closed my eyes and whispered, "This ends with me." I hadn't stepped foot in the town library in years. The building smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner, the same way it had when Rachel used to do her middle school projects here. I used to sit at the kids' table while she pretended to read chapter books and mostly watched boys instead. Now I was here with a folder clutched to my chest, filled with evidence I never imagined I'd have to collect: bank statements, screenshots, letters, copies of credit reports with someone else's dirt written across my name. Irene had insisted. She said Monica was the one to talk to. She volunteers here Tuesdays and Thursdays, Irene had told me. She used to work legal aid in the city. Knows her stuff. Knows when someone's been robbed wearing a smile. The librarian pointed me toward a back room labeled Community Resource Support in fading blue letters. I stepped inside. A woman in her late 40s looked up from behind a desk, glasses perched on her nose. Her hair was pulled into a simple bun, her cardigan the color of moss. "You must be Eleanor," she said warmly. I nodded. "That obvious?" She smiled. Irene called ahead. "Said you'd be bringing a mess in a manila folder." I held it up. She wasn't wrong. Monica gestured to the chair across from her. "Let's see what you've got." I sat down and opened the folder slowly. My hands shook more than I wanted them to. "I don't know if any of this is usable," I muttered. "I've never done anything like this before." "You're not the only one," she said gently, spreading the papers across the table. "And you don't have to be perfect. You just have to start." She moved through each sheet with quiet, methodical care. Highlighted amounts. Circle here. Sticky note there. After 10 minutes, she looked up. "Eleanor, you have enough here to file a full report." My throat tightened. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "You've got financial records, digital logins, credit reports, even a forwarding address for utility bills opened in your name. That's a trail. And not a good one." I looked down at the pages. I thought, maybe it wasn't enough. "It's more than enough." "I'm scared," I whispered. Monica leaned forward. that's normal. This kind of betrayal doesn't just break trust, it breaks your foundation. Especially when it's family. She's my daughter, I said softly. I kept hoping this was some mistake. That she'd call and say sorry. Say it wasn't what it looked like. Monica placed her hand gently over mine. I've seen women come in here after being tricked by strangers, spouses, even grandchildren. It doesn't make you foolish. It makes you trusting. And you don't have to apologize for that. I looked up at her. What happens now? We file a report with the police and Social Security. Then, depending on how far she went, we loop in the federal side. Identity theft tied to government benefits is serious. I'm not trying to ruin her life, I said quickly. You're trying to reclaim yours. I sat back, breathing deeper. I don't even know if I can go through with it. I've never fought anyone. Not like this. Monica studied me for a moment. Then she said, I know a retired attorney, Lydia Trask. She used to handle elder fraud cases for the state. She's tough, but fair. And she has no patience for manipulators. Would she even talk to someone like me? Monica smiled. She makes exceptions for people who show up. You showed up, Eleanor. I blinked back the pressure behind my eyes. I don't want to be the kind of person who stays silent anymore. Good, she said simply. Then let's get your voice back. She handed me a list of steps. Call this number. Sign this form. Send this email. As I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Right before I stepped out, she said, You're not alone. Not in this. Not anymore. I paused. That line, You're not alone, landed somewhere inside me that had been hollow for months. I nodded. Irene said you were good, I told her. Monica chuckled. Irene's got high standards. She usually brings pie with her when she's impressed. I'll bring her a pie next time, I said. And maybe one for you too. As I walked back to my car, the wind was sharper, but I didn't feel cold. Not exactly. Emily was at Irene's, giggling in the backyard with her toy watering can. I watched her from the sidewalk for a moment. She looked up and saw me. Ma, she shouted, waving with both arms. I waved back, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't just feel like someone surviving. I felt like someone starting to fight back. The courthouse envelope arrived on Christmas Eve, hand-delivered by a process server with a clipboard and a too-soft voice. For Rachel Miller, he said, handing me the stack. Confirmed address? She doesn't live here, I replied, steady. But I'll make sure she gets it. He nodded and left without a word. I stood on the porch, snow brushing my slippers, the papers tucked against my chest like a bitter carol. Inside, the smell of cinnamon and apples filled the kitchen. Emily napped in the living room, arms flung wide like she had nothing in the world to fear. I placed the papers in a clear folder. Sealed. Ready. This wasn't revenge. This was protection. For her. For me. For the dignity Rachel had stripped from both of us. Monica said it would come to this. She'll lash out. People like Rachel always do when the illusion cracks. I didn't have to wait long. By morning, the snow had thickened. So had my resolve. At exactly 9:07 a.m., the screen door slammed open. Rachel stood there, cheeks flushed red, snow melting in her hair, fists balled at her sides. You served me on Christmas Eve, she shouted. I stepped into the doorway, Emily on my hip in her reindeer pajamas. Good morning, Rachel. Her eyes locked on the child first. Then me. then the calm in my face. It rattled her. "Who do you think you are?" she spat. "You could have just talked to me." "I did," I said quietly. "You hung up. You're turning my daughter against me. She doesn't know who you are." Rachel's mouth opened, but no words came out. "She doesn't know your voice. She doesn't ask for you. She doesn't even flinch when I say your name." "That's because you poisoned her," she snapped. "I fed her, bathed her, sang to her, held her while she cried," I said. "That's not poison. That's parenting." She stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Give her to me." "No." Her voice trembled now. "I'm her mother." "You never signed the birth certificate," I said. "You left no legal claim. No guardianship, no custody, no visitations. Just a duffel bag and a lie. You think a piece of paper makes you her mom?" "No," I whispered. "But leaving doesn't either." She stared at me, breath visible in the cold air. "I will fight you for her." "You already did," I said. "You just didn't know it." Rachel took another step, but this time her voice cracked. "You don't understand what I've been through." "I don't," I admitted. "Because you never told me. You just took from me. Lied to me. And used my name like it meant nothing." Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't fall. "You ruined my Christmas," she said. I shifted Emily on my hip. "You tried to ruin my life." Silence. Then she stepped back, shaking her head. "You're going to regret this." I nodded. "Maybe. But Emily won't." Rachel turned and stormed down the steps, her boots leaving angry holes in the snow. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there, heart racing. Emily touched my cheek gently, unaware of the war her presence had ignited. Later that evening, Irene brought over pie. "Heard the banshee came by," she said. I smiled for the first time all day. "She did. Said I ruined Christmas." Irene sat beside me, setting the pecan pie on the table. "Funny, I thought you saved it." I looked at the tree, small and plastic but twinkling with old lights. Emily toddled over with a glittery ornament in her hand. "She thinks it's a ball," I laughed. "She thinks you're the moon," Irene said softly. That night, I didn't cry. I tucked Emily into bed and lit a single candle on the windowsill. Monica had been right. This was only the beginning. But for the first time, I wasn't bracing for collapse. I was preparing to stand. I hadn't been in a courtroom since jury duty in 1987. This one was smaller than I remembered. Pale walls, cold floor, folding chairs that groaned every time someone shifted. The judge was a woman about my age, with sharp eyes and a steady presence. I liked that. I sat at the front, my papers neatly stacked in a folder Monica had helped me prepare. Irene was behind me, a quiet pillar in a beige scarf. Emily sat with her in the corner, cross-legged on the floor, coloring inside a circle she called a cat. Rachel sat across from me, dressed like she was going to brunch. Her makeup was perfect. Her lips pursed in permanent disapproval. Her lawyer, a young man in a too-tight suit, tapped his pen dramatically, as if rehearsing for television. When the hearing started, I felt my hands sweat. "Your Honor," Rachel's lawyer began, standing with a smirk, "we're here today because my client's mother has, quite frankly, overstepped. She has no legal claim to this child. No guardianship agreement. No documentation of custody." The judge nodded. "Proceed." "She's elderly," he said plainly. "Lives on fixed income. And she has no medical training, no employment, no formal education. This is not a suitable long-term environment for a child. I clenched my hands tighter in my lap. And, he added, raising a page from his folder, we have statements from my client showing that the child was meant to stay with the grandmother temporarily. This entire legal ambush is both hurtful and unnecessary. The judge turned to me. Ms. Holloway, your response? I stood slowly. I'd like to present the court with documentation. Monica had taught me exactly what to do. I handed the bailiff copies of the folder, financial records, social security statements, credit reports, and screenshots. The judge flipped through them in silence. Your Honor, Rachel's lawyer interrupted, what does this have to do with custody? These documents show unauthorized financial activity, the judge said, still reading. All in Ms. Holloway's name. There's no proof my client did any of that, the lawyer replied quickly. Page 7, I said, my voice dry. There's a screenshot of her Facebook story. It's public. She's drinking champagne. Caption says, living free off mama's checks. The judge lifted an eyebrow. Rachel shifted in her seat. Her smile faltered. I also have call logs, I said, and a voice recording from the night I asked her directly. She didn't deny it. She said, and I quote, don't be surprised when it turns on you. The judge set the folder down. Do you have any legal documentation of guardianship? I filed after she left the child with me, I replied. Rachel has not made any legal request for visitation or return in the last 5 months. She did not sign the birth certificate. She left the child and never came back. Rachel's lawyer stood. Objection, this is emotional manipulation. No, I said, finally turning to face Rachel, this is truth. The judge raised a hand. Enough. Ms. Holloway, one final question. I nodded, heart thudding. Why do you want custody of your granddaughter? I looked at Emily. She was scribbling blue crayon across the page, humming softly. Her little legs swung beneath the chair. She didn't look nervous. She looked safe. I turned back to the judge. Because she's not a burden, I said, voice trembling. She's a child. A person. I want custody not because I have to care for her, but because I choose to. Because I want her to grow up knowing she's safe. That she matters. That she isn't leverage. Or baggage. Or a check in someone else's name. Rachel rolled her eyes. I didn't look at her again. The judge nodded slowly. She reached for her gavel. In the matter of guardianship for Emily Holloway, temporary custody is hereby granted to Eleanor Holloway. The court will proceed with permanent custody filings pending further review of financial misconduct by the biological mother. Rachel stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. You've got to be kidding me, she shouted. Her lawyer tried to calm her, whispering. The judge didn't flinch. This court does not take kindly to fraud or neglect disguised as inconvenience. Ms. Miller, I suggest you retain different counsel before the next hearing. Rachel's face burned red. I didn't say a word. I walked over to Emily and knelt beside her. She held up the drawing proudly. Cat, she said. I smiled. Perfect. Behind me, the gavel fell. And for the first time in years, I felt my heart beat in my chest like it was mine again. E-M-I-L-Y, she spelled proudly, tracing each letter with a purple marker across the lined paper. See, Ma? That's me. You got it, I smiled, crouching beside her at the kitchen table. And you didn't even mix up the eye this time. She grinned, the missing front tooth giving her smile a new kind of charm. I'm gonna write it everywhere. On my backpack. On the fridge. On the dog if we ever get one. No dogs, I laughed, ruffling her curls. At least not ones we have to spell. She went back to her drawing while I stirred the soup on the stove. Outside, the sky had turned orange and gold. I knew she'd ask soon, where does the sun go when it's tired? And I'd answer what I always did, it tucks behind the hills so the moon can watch over us. Emily was 5 now. 5 years of scraped knees, sing-alongs, bad drawings, and good questions. 5 years of healing in tiny, unexpected ways. Her baby shoes were packed away. So was the old crib. I gave it a gentle wipe before folding it up, pressed my hand to the wood one last time. Not because I was done being her mother. Because she no longer needed a crib. She needed a bunk bed, chapter books, a lunchbox with glittery unicorns. Rachel sends letters now and then. Some come with apologies. Some come with venom. I don't answer either kind. I keep them in a box on the highest shelf of the closet. Maybe Emily will want to read them someday. Maybe not. But I don't read them anymore. Because I already did. I read them through the way Rachel slammed my name into credit reports. Through the bills in my mailbox. Through the echo of her voice saying, "Don't be surprised when it turns on you." I don't owe Rachel forgiveness. What I owed was the truth. And I gave it, in court, in letters to the bank, in every bottle I warmed while Emily reached for something solid. My Social Security payments go directly to my account now. The fraud was reversed. Some of it. Not all. I'm still paying down a loan I never took. But that's okay. Peace is expensive, and I'll pay every cent. Monica checks in sometimes. She says Lydia, the retired attorney, tells my story in workshops now, calls me the quiet kind of storm that settles in after the loud ones pass. I don't feel like a storm. I feel like a hill. Sturdy. Silent. Holding a child who climbs higher every year. "Ma," Emily said, breaking my thoughts. "Do you think Rachel's sad?" I looked up. She wasn't coloring anymore. She was watching me. I sat down beside her. Maybe. People who lose things sometimes get sad. Did she lose me? I hesitated. She gave you away. Why? Because she didn't know how to keep you safe. Emily nodded like she'd already guessed it. But you do. I try every day. She reached for my hand. I think I'm safe here. My throat tightened. You are. Do I have to be mad at her? No, I said gently. You never have to feel anything just because someone tells you to. Not even me. She smiled again. Okay. I think I'll just feel sorry for her. That's more than fair. We sat like that for a long time, her small hand in mine, the sun slipping behind the hills like it always did. Later, after bedtime stories and a quiet tuck-in, I stood in the doorway of her room and whispered the same words I'd whispered since the night Rachel left her in my arms. I promise, baby. You are loved. You are safe. You are not a transaction. You are not a burden. You are not your mother's mistake. You are mine, and you are enough. I kept the promise I made that night, not to Rachel, but to the little girl she walked away from. Not just to feed her, but to raise her. Not just to survive for her, but to live with her. We weren't done. We were just getting started. Hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more true feeling stories about silent strength and second chances. Your voice matters, just like hers did.